Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 18 of the Boot Report. Today's video is going to be about a fantastic comparison between two of the top control/power boots. We're answering all your questions, and we are going to completely deconstruct what confidence is and how you can achieve it consistently. So without further ado, let's jump into section 1, weekly mindset, which is going to be a new topic. Don't worry, I've already shifted some of the other categories down, so you'll still get all the same boot content, but we are going to talk a little bit about mindset stuff. It's something that I'm very, very passionate about, and today we're getting into confidence. We had a viewer of the channel, FT Ball for Life 5960, ask in the Q&A, in terms of mentality, I'd like you to talk about building and maintaining confidence. As a professional, you might know that having the physical and technical advantage is not enough anymore if you lack the confidence and the elite mentality, and how showing confidence can actually come in handy to show more of your abilities. I narrowed it down to confidence, but I mean mentality as a whole: calmness, confidence, consistency, etc. So first, we've got to define what confidence is. Now, according to the dictionary, confidence, and this is why confidence is such a hard thing to kind of, as a term, sort of put together and deconstruct, but I'm going to do my best today and show you what are the things that I've done over the course of my professional career and college as well, and in just life, of how I can maintain a high level of confidence through everything that I do. So the definition of confidence is the feeling or belief that you have the ability to do something, which sounds super, super unspecific, and it really is unspecific. So it's the feeling or the belief that you have that you can achieve something, or that you have the ability to do something. And so if we reverse engineer confidence, what do you do when you have a dream you're working towards that you've never actually achieved? Because then how would you have the confidence to go after playing professional football or college football or do anything in life, right? I didn't have the ability, or necessarily, I wouldn't call it confidence when I started the YouTube and the Instagram and my social platforms, because I hadn't done it before. So how would I have the confidence to actually do it? And this is where confidence gets a little bit weird, but I'll give you some tactical advice in just a second. So if we reverse engineer that confidence, let's say you are working towards that goal. So for me, when I was a young kid, it was playing professional soccer, but I'd never played professional soccer before. So how would I have the confidence to actually get there? Well, a couple of things that you can do is you can break it down into smaller goals. So to get to pro, I have to go through my club system, and I have to play college and or semi-professionally, so get to that next level. And for me, it was really helpful to break it down into the slow incremental steps to actually get there. And then you have to focus on the process of getting there, because if you don't focus on the process and you're only outcome focused, emotions are all over the place, and we get into some other things that really aren't healthy for the individual, as well as long-term success of yourself as a player. The third thing I would recommend is reverse engineer all those little steps. So just like I said with confidence itself, you got to reverse engineer what those little goals are. So, okay, if I'm a youth player, in order to get to my academy level in my age group, I have to do X, Y, and Z things. And that is the focus. That's your process focus, those little metrics or those little things every day that you're doing to keep the reps going. The other thing that I want you to sort of deconstruct in your mind is, so many of you guys, and I was this player as well, so many of you think of confidence as an outcome. Confidence is a thing you achieve and then you have it, or you don't have it. No. Confidence is what really cool thought leader, what Simon Sinek calls an infinite game. You can't win the game of confidence. You can't win the game of business. You can't win the game of life. You can just exist in the game. The goal is to play the game as long as possible. So the goal of confidence is to be confident, exist in confidence for as long as possible. I hope this is making sense. So confidence is an infinite game, just like business, just like social media, just like a marriage, just like a friendship, right? You want to be in that friendship, you want to be in that marriage for as long as possible, because that's the game. It's an infinite game. So when it comes to so the goal of confidence is to continue and stay confident. The natural progression is then to be focused on the process of being confident, because the process is the infinite game. Being focused on your process is that infinite game of being confident all the time. So how do you build and maintain confidence? Well, in my opinion, and in my actual life of achieving professional football status as a professional footballer and doing it for many years and winning a national title, it's a series of daily habits and rituals that keep you focused on improving and keep your focus on the process of being or existing in confidence. Does that make sense? So again, it's those little daily rituals and habits that hold you to the standard of playing that infinite game, of existing in confidence for your entire life and in your career. And it isn't just a football thing. So what are some tactical steps you can do to take yourself into that process, to bring yourself back to that process of being in confidence? One of the things is a reset routine. So I learned this from my sports psychologist, Dr. Cassidy Preston, who essentially defined it as, or at least my interpretation of how he defined it, was a physical action or thing that you can do in half of a second that you train to associate with being back in that process. So I wore wrist tape on both wrists when I played, both in training and in games, because I was trying to train my brain to really, really get into this mindset, which helped obviously get on the field, helped me through really tough times on the pitch, etc. So I had my alter ego, which we'll talk about in a sec, alter ego name written on my left wrist and the initials of my misses on the right wrist. So the alter ego, Venom, which most of you probably know already, but Venom was a reminder of Venom is confident. The alter ego is confident. And therefore, when I am in this game mode, this is how this alter ego acts. It's not how, if Noah gets nervous, he's not going to act. No. It's I become this alter ego when I am playing. Therefore, this is how this person acts. It's not an emotional thing. It just is. The misses, on the other hand, was a perspective. So this is an infinite game as well. My misses, my marriage is an infinite game. And so therefore, the little mistakes or the little peaks and troughs that happen during the course of football is a very, very small drop in what we like to call life. And so it really isn't that big of a deal when I make a mistake because I've got perspective and I know what stuff actually really matters. And yes, I put everything into football. Very much mattered. But perspective is important. I chose for this reset routine to snap my fingers, take a deep breath, and touch my wrists together. That was it. I can't tell you why I do it because it just was like one of the things that I came up with, but it helped me through some unbelievably difficult moments in game where I would make a mistake and I could reset instantaneously because of that reset routine. And every time in training that I made a mistake, I was also doing that reset routine to get me back to neutral, to get me back to, again, existing in confidence. The next thing is your mental repetition and imagination. You can do any sort of visuals or, wow, I'm just talking around the word that I'm trying. It's not imagination. It's visualization. Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. So visualization of yourself on the pitch, being successful. Here's what happens when I'm successful. Here's what also happens when I fail or I miss a pass or I concede a goal if you're a goalkeeper. Actual training is the third thing. So the more you practice, the more you exist in process and in that infinite game of confidence. And then reframing your experiences of failure as learning. So it's preparing to win. Yep, we all know how to win gracefully. And how do you also fail? How do you also make mistakes? So what happens when you win? What happens when you fail? I wrote a newsletter the other week on the weekly blueprint that you guys can subscribe to on my website. And basically the whole op-ed, if you will, was essentially breaking down why I actually think preparing to fail for footballers is even more important than preparing to win. The final thing you can do is being proactive with your mindset and not reactive. So training yourself on that reset routine, going after and developing who and what and how that alter ego interacts with you and the game. And then also breaking down, your actual practice, your visualization, all that stuff, right? So if you guys are interested in more information and you like this type of mindset stuff, the Weekly Blueprint is the newsletter that I write every single week, and that will be more and more available. I'm going to start doing more of those newsletters, as well as the 2 new social platforms that I have decided to build business on, which is new and exciting and fun. I'll get into that more in the next couple weeks. At pro.blueprint on Instagram and at pro.blueprint on YouTube. There are no posts there, but you can be one of the first people to follow and subscribe so you can see what's coming up. It's very, very exciting, and I'm super pumped to get into it. So, all right, that was section 1, weekly mindset. Section 2, boot talk. Here we go with the comparison of the Nike Phantom 6. I'm probably going to call it the GX3 like 4 or 5 times during the course of this comparison. And of course, the Predator 25. Now let's jump into the overhead camera and show you guys some of these new boots. So I have played in both of these. I've played extensively in the FT model, both in the 24 and the 25 generation. Hybrid touch upper, control frame 2.0 outsole, the strike skin elements on the medial side of the midfoot and the forefoot, the fold over tongue, etc., etc. And then over on the Phantom 6 side, we have a grip knit forefoot and midfoot, a fly knit base, fly knit tongue area, and then their new AG sole plate. I will, for the sake of this video, be comparing it to the FG sole plate. So I have not played with the FG sole plate on the low tops, but I have a pretty good understanding of what the FG sole plate is on the high tops, having played in these before. So for the sake of the sole plate comparison here, we are going to be just doing FG versus FG, not FG versus AG. So just so you guys know. But we are going to do the low tops because that's the best out of the 2. All right, so let's move into the sole plate without further ado. Okay, so the sole plate on the, I'll actually take this out of the way so you guys can see kind of a comparison between these 2 models. So the Phantom 6 new sole plate, the Cyclone 360, they're calling it the same thing, which is cool. I don't mind that very much. And then you have the control frame 2.0 outsole on the Predator. Now, the Predator outsole is very basic. It's super utilitarian, which I'm very okay with. I do not mind these studs on AG or on FG. As you can see, they're stained black because I've worn them quite a bit on AG surfaces. It's a great sole plate. It's got a good amount of snap as well. Nice through the forefoot at that really kind of perfect point. And overall, it's a sole plate that I have sung praises of. Do I think it's the best in the world? No. Do I think it's even the best control/power boot? Not really. But it still is very good for what it does for this particular modern day Predator. Now moving on to the updated Cyclone 360 sole plate. This has a lot more snap to it. Very, very stiff through the midfoot, which is great. I love the updates to the conical stud pattern they've made through the midfoot and the sort of the bottom half of the forefoot area. It is unfortunate that they still have the Cyclone 5 bladed studs, but what I am glad is that they are not advertising this as a stud pattern that's great for pivoting for women because it's going to decrease injuries, because we all knew that was bullshit. But now this is just a standard FG stud pattern with no extra kind of marketing around it as something that's going to be great for reducing injuries, which again, we all knew was bullshit. I'm actually going to give it to the Cyclone 360, believe it or not. I think this is a more special sole plate. It's more responsive. It's got way more grip than the Predator does. And I do think that the Cyclone 360 sole plate is very, very good now. It's much updated. And yes, I wish there was something different here in the forefoot with these Cyclone 360 studs. But on FG surfaces, without all the BS marketing, this is a great sole plate. It's very, very fun to play in. And for the record as well, this AG sole plate is now one of the best AG stud patterns on the market, bar none. So definitely come check it out, or go check it out, I guess, if you're interested in something that's a little bit more neutral in an AG stud pattern. And then we move on to the upper materials. Now, this gets really complicated because there's going to be a lot of people who really love the grip knit elements and just like knit boots in general. The softness of this upper is really nice. It cannot be understated. And the overall feeling of a knit football boot is very unique. Obviously, we've had them now since 2014, but they've gotten better and better and better. The knit on this kind of boot is not even comparable to old knit football boots that were, overstretched and then were super sloppy, et cetera, et cetera. This is a very well executed knit upper. And of course, the grip knit is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, upper materials on the market. The hybrid touch on the Predator is also excellent. It is really, really comfortable on feet, particularly after you break it in. If we take this tongue out, you can see it's incredibly soft. It's got a great amount of flex to it. And it really does have that sort of rubber bandish type sensation to it, where when you tie the laces tight, you put the tongue over the top, it really feels like the material expands and then sort of comes back to meet all the little nooks and crannies of your foot. And for this reason, I actually am going to give a tie to this one, because I think I was thinking about, like, okay, in my personal life, which one do I actually prefer? I like the grip knit slightly more, but I love this hybrid touch upper. They're both so good, and I've had equal time in grip knit boots and in Predator boots. I probably had a little bit more in grip knit boots given my experience with GX1, but these are both incredible uppers, and I think they're going to fit most people as well. So I'm going to give this section a tie. Then moving over to the heel area. Now, if you can see from the overhead camera the difference in the heel shape, it's pretty remarkable how different they are. Obviously, this Predator heel is a lot more contoured. It's got much more zonal padding as opposed to the Phantom 6, which has padding along the outside, but it's kind of everywhere. So regardless of where you are in the boot, it's got padding basically from the bottom all the way to the top of this knit stitched area all the way around. So in terms of who each of these is going to fit, if you have narrow feet, there's an obvious answer to that. And if you have really wide feet, there's an obvious, or wide heel area, there's an obvious answer. But in terms of actual fit and contour and comfort, I'm going to go with the Predator, because I think the Predator heel area just fits a lot better. And I think maybe this was just an issue with this first colorway of the Phantom 6, but that heel area just feels way too wide for what this boot should be. Even if you stack this up against the previous generation or even the GX1, which this is sort of inspired by, the heel area on the GX1 is a lot, well, it's not a lot, but it definitely is more narrow. It's much more contoured. It feels better, despite the overall design and padding areas being pretty much the same. So heel area is going to go to the Predator. Now, in terms of comfort, this one is going to be definitely a subjective conversation, right? Like, if you fit in the Predator the best, that's going to be the best. If you fit in Phantom 6, that's also going to be the best. But I do think in general, if there's not any sort of prohibitive items on the upper of a knit football boot, for the most part, for most people, knit football boots are going to be more comfortable for more people, just because there is that sort of nice stretch and really open, and what's the term I'm looking for? It's a very uninhibited type of material. So there isn't areas like there are with the Predator that have more or less structure to them. Obviously, you can weave in a denser knit or a less dense knit, but for the most part, I think a knit material football boot is actually going to fit more people, and it's more comfortable for me as well. So I'm going to go with the Phantom 6 on comfort. In terms of performance, this is also going to be a really, really tough one, because I think both perform excellently well. The only differentiator that I was thinking about in here is, okay, from a raw performance perspective, if I'm going to go play a game, which we'll get into in the questions, one of the viewers of the channel who asked a question this past week for the Boot Report episode basically asked if I was going to play in a Champions League final, which one would I go for? Now, we'll get into my actual answer for all the boots on the market, but for the sake of this comparison, the boot I'm gonna pick is the Phantom 6. It's because it's what I love. I love grip knit. I think it's probably my favorite material on the market outside of K-leather, but that's like a dying breed. But anyway, so the performance is going to go to the Phantom 6. Now, in terms of design, this is a really easy one. I mean, even if you just compare these two colorways, it's pretty obvious who the winner is here. The Predator, particularly in the FT model, is just an absolutely gorgeous boot. They nailed the design. The colorways have been, for the most part, pretty good. And especially in this kind of champagne pack inspired colorway, the Predator wins out on design every day of the week. Lace area, I'm also going with the Predator. I think a standard U-throat tongue, even though it's a fold-over tongue, but the standard U-throat tongue is a little bit more adjustable in my opinion. Yes, I think the seamless one monosock sensation you get from a knit is really nice, but I do really like a regular standard U-throat tongue quite a bit. It's very, very comfortable, and it's really adjustable. It gives you some good ability to break in the boots, especially for me in the midfoot, without any huge issues, I guess you could say. Then in terms of X Factor, again, I've gone over this a lot, but in terms of the X Factor, for me, it has to be the grip knit material. I still think, even though the Vapor is now includes a grip knit upper, I still think the grip knit is a more special material than the hybrid touch with these rubberized grip elements. I think grip knit, the way that it wraps around your foot, we've seen it in different iterations of obviously the double layer with the Phantom 6 and the GX1. We've also seen a single layer of grip knit with the GX2. And these are all examples of how you can operationalize this material to kind of do whatever you want it to. So for me, X Factor goes to the Phantom. So how does that stack up? So we have the Phantom 6 with 1, 2, 3, 4 with a tie. So that's technically 5 points. And then for the Predator, we have 4 points with the tie. So 5-4, a very, very, very close comparison. I think this could have gone either way. I think for some people, the Predator is going to edge the Phantom 6 out. They're going to fit pretty similarly in terms of foot shape. So for really narrow feet, I think I would either I'd swap over to Vapor if you want the grip knit, and then this will kind of fit you, except the toe box is pretty wide. So they're going to fit a similar profile of player, and they're both very, very good football boots. So you really can't go wrong. I'll leave links down in the description for both of these ones, and you can get hopefully a better colorway than this. But I'll try to find one that has either the new blue and white colorway and maybe a good or the new blackout colorway, which we'll talk about in just a sec. Hashtag Wear Your Boots Wednesday. Now, we had some really cool Wear Your Boots Wednesday submissions this week, and there was a very obvious winner for me, at least this week, and that was Dr. Astute with the Wave Cup remakes from 2020. Now, I did bring out my personal Wave Cup SS. The remakes that came out in 2020 were the Wave Cup Legend remakes, and that was an all Japan blue with the white and the yellow accents. So basically a reverse of the ones that that Rivaldo wore. Rivaldo did wear the blue at some point as well, but the original ones in the World Cup of 2002 were that white with the blue and yellow. Now, the reason they win is because this is the greatest boot of all time, in my opinion, and or it's up there with the top kind of 2 or 3. And it is just an absolutely sensational football boot. Dr. Astute knows exactly how good they are, and those blue ones are absolutely beautiful. That is a pair that is on that particular remake pair or an OG pair, although the OG pair probably doesn't exist anymore very many places, at least not in brand new fashion. But I would love to get even the 2020 remake of the Wave Cup Legend in blue in my size, because that is a grail pair of football boots. If you haven't seen that video, I will try and link it down below as well. It's on it's in the last 2 weeks, I think, of releases, so you can go check that one out. Performance breakdowns. All right, so for performance breakdowns, we are going to talk about my play tests of the Phantom 6. Let me make sure those aren't in the way. The Phantom 6 DF. I know, it's the high top. No, yeah, I know. I'm going to call it the DF because that's what it freaking is. It's the same as the GX1 DF. So the DF and the low cut model. Now, some of the differences, I want to go over some of the key differences. You guys can find the video for this one if you'd like to watch it, that released late last week. And then this one, the review for the DF model, will come out the day after this podcast. So you guys can stay tuned for that one. Set your timers and reminders. It will come out at the same time as this pod, just 24 hours later. So you'll get a good idea. But I wanted to break them down in this podcast because a lot of people have been asking, what are the differences? How do they fit differently? And we'll go over that today. So we've got, obviously, the two pairs. This one is in the AG model and the high cut DF is in the FG model. I don't think that really matters all that much now that both sole plates have a really, really nice structure to them. I think if you are somebody who, I think it now, instead of becoming now, because it's not a question of the old Cyclone 360 sucks, so should I get the AG even though I play on FG sometimes? And my answer was usually yes. Now we're in a really great position where both Phantoms have a very good sole plate, in my opinion, some of the best on the market. And so it really just is a question of, hey, if you play on AG and a little bit of FG, go with the AG model. If you play mostly on FG surfaces, get the FG model. The FG will be fine for the most part for higher level players who can play on AG every once in a while. But regardless, you're going to be totally fine with both sole plates. So a couple main talking points that I want to go over really quick. So one is that the DF model definitely has more lockdown, particularly through the lacing system area. So despite this ghost lacing system not allowing you to make super fine adjustments to the lacing, because really all you do is you pull it tight and then they sort of cinch up, and then that's really all the adjustability you get, because you can't really reach down in there like you can with this and do like one little lace thing at a time, right? So the adjustability on the low top is obviously a lot better. However, the DF, because of this dynamic fit collar and the ghost lacing system, it really kind of forces your heel back into this heel area, and it makes the boots perform a lot better. They definitely have more lockdown, even when you tie the low top as tight as humanly possible. Now, you could probably fix this with either a sock that's got extra padding in the heel area, but I just find that the heel on the DF model is a little bit more contoured, and then of course that ghost lacing system. The low model is one of the most comfortable knit football boots I have ever worn. This is point number 2. This boot for wide foot shapes is fabulous. It is so comfortable. It's very neutral. It allows a lot. I mean, the new sole plate is fantastic, which we'll get into in a second. The extra volume, the extra width through the toe box really just makes this football boot they've finally taken the advice of all of the boot nerds around the world and just Mizuno. This is sort of my coined term, is like Mizunoification. Like they've Mizunoified the GX1, meaning they've just tweaked it ever so slightly. They've listened to customer feedback, to pro feedback, and they've gone, okay, GX1, we had something special, especially in that FG model. How can we make that just a little bit better using the same DNA that we had for that first model? And boy, oh boy, have they done it. This is one of my favorite knit football boots I think I've ever tried on. And that puts this in the category. I don't have enough experience in it to put it in Hypervenom 3 category, but it is definitely up there for best knit football boots I have ever worn already. And I've only trained in them twice. So this is something very, very fun and special, even though the colorway sucks. So the third point is this extra grip here on the ghost lacing system in comparison to the area that's obviously completely exposed knit, fly knit on the low top model. You really can't feel this. There might be a single scenario where you are coming straight up at a ball and you are kind of hitting a volley, like a dipped volley shot. Maybe you'd feel a tiny bit of extra grip there, but this little extra spot is actually, I think, more functional as a method of making this area here not overstretch, so that when you put your foot in, it's a little bit harder to get your foot into these, but the only areas that are really expanding to allow your foot to get in are the black fly knit areas on the lateral and medial side of this lacing system area. And then this area right here, sure, they'll market it as like, you get 50% more grip or 30% more grip. You really don't feel this. It's more as a structural piece to make sure that this element doesn't overstretch, as the GX1 DF tended to get a little bit of overstretching in that lacing system area. So really, really nice. The heel on the low launch colorway edition is a tad concerning if you have narrower heels like me. I have a wider forefoot, wider midfoot, and then my heel is actually quite narrow. And so this is a little concerning. I've heard from other boot nerds in the space who I'm homies with that this is much is either fixed or a little bit better on different colorways. But it does, if you look at the general shape of it, it is a little concerning how wide the heel area is, given that Achilles tendons for most people are a lot narrower than the midfoot or the, like your heel. For, I would say, for the vast majority of human feet, the heel area is one of the narrowest parts of your foot. So I don't know why they went with a really open area. It's a little concerning to me. I didn't have any crazy issues. I didn't even get blisters, but I do feel that there's a little bit of wiggle room there that I might get concerned with the more and more I break the boots in. Final two pieces on performance breakdown here is this grip knit is the best that they've come out with so far. It is really waxy. It's very sticky. It's really fun to play in. I like the little ribs. It gives you kind of a little bit more of a pingy tactile sensation than the flat grip knit that comes on the Vapor and the GX1. And I just genuinely think this is a great football boot overall. The grip knit just feels slightly more updated. And then this little shot area here in orange doesn't do a whole lot to the playing experience of the boot, but it does kind of feel a little bit pingy, which is kind of cool. So they've sort of integrated what the Predator has, but inside the upper, which is quite fun and creative. And then the final piece, which I mentioned before, this new sole plate is absolutely fantastic, both on the FG and on the AG model. Completely transforms the playing experience of that boot, which is super nice because I think for the majority of people, other than maybe it being a little bit narrow in GX1 and GX2, like the toe box being a little narrow, I think everybody kind of agreed that the sole plate of both of those GX1 and GX2 models, and Luna 1, Luna 2, whatever, was the sole plate. The downfall of that boot was the sole plate. So I think they fixed it with these new models, and these are some of my favorite boots on the market right now. And although it's, it's not new and exciting because they basically look the same as GX1 and GX1 DF, it is a boot that, again, is Mizuno-ified. It's slightly updated. It feels a little bit better. Well done, Nike. Pro versus retail models. This was really interesting to me because if you're a boot nerd, you would have noticed this. And also if you follow Brighton, you would have noticed this. James Milner, who's now coming up on he's probably going to end up being the most capped Premier League player. And by capped, I just mean like the most games of a Premier League player ever. He's coming up on it. I think he's in the top 2 or top 3 now. And he was wearing a pair of, not this color, obviously, but the GX2 with the sole plate from the Tiempo Legend 4. Now, this is obviously the Elite sole plate. So this is the Elite's, the Elite sole plate with the carbon. He was wearing the regular Tiempo 4, but the stud pattern is what I wanted to show you here because it's the same on this one as it is on the regular Tiempo Legend Elite sole plate. So recently, if you guys didn't get a chance to listen to it, the most recent episode of the Bootcast podcast, which is a wonderful, wonderful group of friends of mine, they are absolutely awesome people. And we had this epic episode that was like a 90-minute episode, basically going through the best football boots of all time. So it was long. It was super fun. We did like a round robin of boot versus boot, and we had to agree. It was freaking amazing. The Tiempo Legend 4 ended up in the top 4 boots of all time. And I think was in the final actually against the Wave Cup. The reason that I argued early on in the video why the Tiempo Legend 4 was so good is that so many pros, again, including the epic James Milner, decided that, oh yeah, this sole plate sucks. Let's go to one that all the pros use. You look at Busquets, you look at Phil Foden, you look at James Milner, you look at a lot of these pros, and they're all opting for the conical stud patterns with the 2 little bladed studs and then the sort of ovular kind of half-bladed studs in the rear. Epic sole plate, both in carbon and in non-carbon form. If I had to pick between the carbon and non-carbon, honestly, I'd probably go with the non-carbon. The carbon's just a little bit, it's like the OG style of carbon sole plate, so it didn't feel as good as some of the new stuff that we've seen with like this guy right here with the Carbitex insert and a much more kind of new carbon race shoes for marathons get it because they're contoured. And so when you hit the ground, it sort of propulses you forward. But a lot of the carbon fiber from back in the day was incredibly flat. And so it didn't yes, it had snap in the forefoot, but not as much as you'd think. Whereas now they've realized that the Carbitex insert was sort of curved so that when you hit the ground, it really propulsed you forward. And so there's been a lot of technological advances in carbon fiber footwear, or the use of carbon fiber in footwear, and that has affected football very much as well. And so I would opt for the regular one, just like James Milner did. So a really interesting sighting, though. I will throw the photo up on screen. You guys will see it, but it's very subtle, and you can you'd only be able to tell if you were like looking for special edition boots or stuff like that, which I do for the sake of this podcast, which is kind of cool. All right, boot culture and trends. I think we are back in what I like to call colorway land, which is basically the period of time that we were in from Q1 and Q2 of this year, which is brands are releasing so many colorways. We'll get into that in just a second with the latest colorway drops. But Adidas are probably going to launch their fall pack in about, I would guess, anywhere between 4 and 6 weeks, by the middle of August when the Prem starts. The boot market is also changing. I have seen, going through my Instagram feed and the stories where I go to look for notable boots resurfacing, a lot of those were new releases. So they were, under RRP or under discount or discounted models of the newest Skechers boots or the newest Nike Shadow Pack, the newest whatever. And so I think we might be in another phase of where so much stuff is coming out and people are just going overboard with the amount of colorways that are happening, as well as, excitement for this sort of dying down a little bit. I feel like colorways nowadays are just not that great looking. And so we're coming into this trend of basically, okay, lots of releases from the big brands or all the football brands means the resellers go away from the cool stuff. Boot brands don't release as much and resellers stick with the really cool shit. I'd rather it be less releases from the big brands and then we'd see the resale market really kind of kick off and grow. Unfortunately, it's kind of forcing resellers to basically get the newest models from their connections at factories and then be able to resell those and sort of ride the hype wave of those new colorways coming out, which is really dumb and really unfortunate because I feel like people get into boot reselling, yes, for money because it's a business fundamentally. But I think if you were to talk to the majority of these boot resellers, a lot of them actually have a passion for OG football boots and really enjoy football boots. Okay, behind the scenes industry talk. Now, I just wanted to touch base on this. Last week and the week prior, I had some pretty big, long-winded conversations with myself because there's only me and a camera in this room. But with you guys, when you watch the videos about K-Leather and K-Leather exiting the chat for the football boot market. Now, in the next couple of years, we will see ASICS obviously going away from it. We've already seen Nike, Adidas, and Puma go away from it. Mizuno is also going to be going away from it. And my guess is that eventually we'll see more heritage brands like Diadora, Uno Zero, and Pantofolo d'Oro. We will see what happens with those style of brands, like the more classic looking football boots, potentially go away from K-Leather and go to calfskin leather. We will see, but I am hopeful that at least some K-Leather stays around. What that does mean is that there's now an ongoing race behind the scenes to go for big brands to go to manufacturers, develop their faux leather material. So think Silky Wrap from ASICS, Dynamic Touch Tech from New Balance. I'm mentioning those two because those are the only two really viable K-Leather replacements. Like they feel leather-like enough, but they're synthetic and they are pretty damn incredible, both of those. both on the Tequila and on the X-Fly Pro 3 and the new X-Fly 6, which is the replacement for the X-Fly 5. Yes, Asics did go away from leather on the X-Fly 5, which I'm super sad about, but we'll get into that when those boots come in. So what happens essentially is they have to go develop the product with the manufacturing plant or the factory, and then they also have to have sort of the behind the scenes dealing if that factory, so let's say for an example, the factory here in Australia that's up north of Brisbane that basically supplied the majority of the K leather raw materials for the treatment and raw materials for the K leather uppers for Nike, Mizuno, Asics, Adidas, all those stuff. So raw materials come from Australia for K leather. They get exported to the factories that are making the football boots, whether it's in Vietnam or China or Japan or wherever, and then, or Italy. And then those manufacturing plants or the factories then obviously put the products together. But behind the scenes, every company has a unique way of treating K leather. And it's the same. I'm using that as an example for the synthetics. But if they all use the same supplier of K leather, they have to go in, if they're smart, which all these companies are really smart for the most part. Their colors suck, but majority of them are smart business people. They'll go to the K leather supplier and go, hey, this particular way of treating this K leather, you can only sell to us. So you can only supply that particularly treated type of K leather to us. Works the same with the synthetics. So grip knit, for example, Nike developed grip knit with a manufacturer. I am unaware. I don't know whether grip knit comes out of a factory that other brands use for other knit products or whatever. I don't know if like the Adidas knit material or New Balance knit material or whatever comes out of that factory. I'm not sure. But let's say it did. Nike would have an exclusivity deal basically that pre-coded yarns being woven together as a grip knit or grip knit alternative can't exist out of that factory or out of any other factory, because they've patented that or they've done patents on that technology and contracts with those manufacturers. I know this is getting a lot longer than I expected this section to be, but this is a really interesting thing to me because there are so many like behind the scenes races to basically get to market as K leather is so rapidly, the use of K leather is so rapidly declining. There's this massive spike in development of these faux leather materials. We saw the same thing in the car market with electric vehicles. So when electric vehicles became the thing, which I know there's like a whole thing with Trump in office now that obviously is like, America is moving away from government incentives for the electric vehicles. And so therefore manufacturers are not incentivized to create more of them because there's no government incentives for consumers to buy. That's all to basically relate the story to the K leather stuff. As K leather goes down, synthetics have to go up. And there's a huge race right now to figure out who can produce the best. It's like New Balance and Asics, if they had exclusivity deals and patents for their silky wrap and dynamic touch tech, if Nike doesn't come out, and Puma particularly, doesn't come out with, if they aren't willing to do what Adidas is doing and do really nicely treated calfskin, and they're going only synthetic to save money long term, they'd have to come up with some way to develop a fake leather material for the Tiempo or whatever the new Tiempo is going to be called, or the new like classic football boot silo. Super interesting. Section 3, market report. All right, so market report, latest colorway drops. We had the Skechers SKX2, which I am super excited about. I actually had those in hand at the Skechers headquarters here in Melbourne very recently, and I had hands-on with the Razor 1.5 in that same colorway, which actually has been updated. So for those of you who obviously have seen the Razor 1.5 reviews, this is actually quite a cool colorway, I think. But the Tasian synthetic upper is very, very soft, but it very much feels like a single piece of material that doesn't have, it's incredibly soft, it's incredibly nice, it wraps around the foot really well, but it isn't quite like leatherette type soft that we see from a silky wrap or something like that. And I know Tajin synthetic is meant to do something slightly different. The point being, the new the new Razor 1.5 isn't called anything different, but they have updated this particular upper just ever so slightly to make it feel almost like a combination of leather and the Tajin synthetic. It is really, really cool. It's super soft. It's kind of subtle, but it is remarkably softer than the 1.5, which I already rated as one of the better speed boots on the market. They've also changed the way that they're manufacturing the carbon infused sole plate. So that is a little bit stiffer, a little bit more responsive. And the design has not changed, but it is slightly updated. This is something that I think Skechers is doing right, is they are Mizuno-ifying their football boots. So they go through, you know, a Razor 1, Razor 1.5, then Razor 2 will come out, and that's like your updated model, just like the SKX2. So, which is very, very cool. And the SKX is completely different, and they look and feel awesome. I am really excited. I haven't had them on feet. I've just had them in hand. Nike gave us the Scary Good pack, which is scary shit in terms of colorways. So don't go buy them. They're really not that great. The Tiempo is a gray and an orange. Bleh, boring. Phantom is also gray and orange. That was the Scary Good pack. Phantom was the original kind of leak release that we got from Footy Headlines a long time ago, and they look even shittier than the photos did. The Vapor is pink and orange, which just is absolutely... this pack sucks, man. This is like a 3 out of 10, 2 out of 10 probably. I don't think I'd wear any of those. The Phantom is okay, but that's also because I think the general, as I said when the boots launched, the general design of the Phantom, just like the GX1, is really nice. You can do a lot of things with a sort of a 2-part upper. This colorway and that Scary Good pack colorway is really not great. However, Nike did redeem themselves with the Shadow pack, which is a blackout with subtle light blue and dark blue accents. I think they made a mistake going 2 shades of blue. I think if you look at the Phantom 6, it's got just like this Phantom 6 color has the silver that basically outlines the connection between the grip knit and the fly knit material. I think they made a mistake with the Shadow pack. I think they should have just gone with black, and then the swoosh in the heel, the swoosh on the lateral side of the midfoot, and then the swoosh here on the middle of the midfoot is all like a light blue. I wish they would have just chosen dark blue or light blue as the single accent colorway. As I've said in so many videos at this point, one base color, one accent color. That's it. You can sometimes get away with complementary accent colors, like a base of X and then base of white, base of black, and then little complementary accent colors, but not like light and dark of the same color. It just looks shitty, especially on blackout boots. It might look okay. It might look kind of cool on a white, because then the contrast just looks really cool. But on a blackout boot, man, don't do dark and light blue. Do one or the other. So, however, generally speaking, this pack looks really nice. It looks really clean. It's it's shadowy. It's very typical Nike Shadow blackout pack. Then we also got, oh my God, I don't even want to talk about these. The Untamed pack from, guess who? Puma. Puma released another goddamn colorway. This has to be 15 colorways this season. Sorry, this year. That's insane. Oh, I mean, it looks all right. Like, it doesn't look bad. The Ultra 6, the new Ultra 6 is like a really nice kind of here we go. Bottom of the can, royal blue with white and orange. It's all right. The King is decent looking, white base with the orange and the black accents. The Future, also half decent if it wasn't like the worst boot on the market, white with the blue and the orange. I don't even want to talk about that pack. I just think it's just so annoying. They just did another one. It is so, at this point, Puma needs to cool the fuck down. They need to cool off. Okay. There isn't anything new in the shop yet. X-Fly 6, SKX, and the new Razor, the updated Razor and the new SKX are all on the way. So those will be happening soon. I will be releasing Tequila playtest and review, and what's the other one? One other one very, very soon. As I mentioned before, the Phantom 6 DF model will be coming out the day after this video comes out, so stay tuned for that. Notable boots resurfacing. Some unbelievable boots in the notable boots resurfacing. These all come from dealers that I follow and I give a thumbs up to. The Cleats Corner _1, Cleat Corner _1 had a pair of the Tati Tiempo 5s in the beautiful black, black and silver in an 8.5 US. Absolutely cool. These were like number 200 and something out of the 3,000, which is sick, or 2,500 or whatever it was. Cleat Corner also had a pair of Tiempo 9 Montebellunas in AG in a 9.5 US, and then the Morelia Neo 4 Beta Innovation Pack, which is obviously a very popular football boot, from a 9.5 to a 10.5. So a 9.5, a 10, and a 10.5 US. So if you are wanting the Innovation Pack Morelias, definitely go check them out. They are really good. They don't fit my foot all that well, just because the Beta upper doesn't fit me all that well, but one of the best boots of the year. They are so responsive, so snappy, very comfortable for those who fit in them. And yeah, so really, really great stock from Cleat Corner _1. Precision. Say the word precision with precision. Soccer Shop has some unbelievable boots in one single page. So had like a 4 stack of boots. Vapor 12 Euphoria Gold Pack. Unreal pair. Superfly 5 EA Sports, also dope. And Superfly 360 China exclusive. This was Superfly when they went to all knit. So I think it wasn't 13. It was the one right before that. So Vapor, okay, Superfly 4, Vapor 10, Superfly 5, Vapor 11, Superfly 6, Vapor 8. Is that right? No. Sorry, 12, not 8. I'm going backwards. Vapor 12, Superfly 6. So it would have been Superfly 6, but they called it Superfly 360. China exclusive. So sick. Okay, and then Boot _Nostalgia had the Wayne Rooney Hypervenom Phantom 2.5s in my size. I want to buy these. They are so cool. The red and the white. Oh, that combo is just sick. Okay, really quick for stock availability and drops. I just wanted to mention this because the Bootcast guys talked about it a while ago, but the Under Armour Magnetico 5s that just sort of soft launched with Rudiger and the Under Armour Mansory collab that they did with the new Shadow 5s. There were less than 100 pairs available worldwide, and I'm not going to name the name. If you're watching this, you know who you are. There was a pair of Mansory for over 1,000 AUD. Look, I have all the respect in the world for what Under Armour is trying to do, and I think they have a really good team of really smart people in their design crew, both in the Portland area and over in, I think they're in Chicago or Philadelphia maybe, is their like national headquarters. Under Armour I really rate Under Armour. Just as a sportswear brand, but also as a football boot brand. I think they're going in the right direction, but they do not have the credibility, and not even Hypervenom 1 remake should be resold for 1,000 AUD. That's I don't care how rare it is. No boot is worth that unless they are associated with an all-time great player. They're super, super limited, which I realize the Mansory boots are, but no, not. That's just insane. That's so stupid. Please, no one go and buy them. I'm not going to tell you who it was from, but if you end up finding them, don't buy them. It's not worth it. You'll just wait until the regular Magnetico 5 comes out, and then you'll be way more happy with a $200 boot instead of a $1,000 boot that you're never going to wear. Okay, section 4. Audience questions. You too can ask questions at noahcavanaugh.com/podcast. We have Elite Noob 6 asking, how long are kangaroo leather boots playable? Like, do you have any Tiempo Legend 1s that are still wearable to play in? I got to stock up on Morelias. Okay. No, Tiempo Legend 1s, I would say pretty much every Tiempo Legend 1 is completely unplayable at this point. Number one, because most of them are destroyed. Number two is that if you got a new pair, they would break almost immediately because boots get brittle if you don't wear them in a little bit, which is why I love to buy slightly used boots if I'm actually going to go and play and do play tests and shorts and Instagram content for them. So so let's say you bought a new pair of Morelia 2s and you treated them really well. You broke them in immediately. So the glue set, the material set, everything feels really good. I would argue, I would say that a pair like that would and should last you about a decade plus, like 10 to 12 years probably, especially if you took really good care of them. So you washed them after they got muddy. If you wear them on turf, they're going to break and rip a lot sooner than that because turf is really, really harsh on football boots. But for the majority of players who are playing on like a local grass field, particularly here in Australia where the ground surface is a little bit harder, but the natural grass is great and the football boots will last a while. Should be 10, like ideally a Morelia 2 should last a decade. That should be their tagline. And I've heard of people wearing the Copa Mundials for longer than that, which is pretty wild. At Juwan X1K, how do you overcome the fear of getting stepped on with SG boots and become more comfortable with the pain? Okay. I am going to be a little bit harsh here. When you are playing a contact sport, there is a risk associated with playing a contact sport. So in football, you have things like getting studded on your feet, breaking your ankles because somebody tackles you, getting a concussion from heading a football. These are all things that you risk when you play a game. Just the same as you risk, obviously cars are very safe nowadays, but you risk getting in an accident, getting injured from driving a car. These are all things that you just accept when you play a game. Now, you can play scared, you can play careful, but you're never going to be the best player you actually can be if you play like that. My immediate reaction to this question is then don't fucking play soccer, dude. Like, it's going to be painful. Life is painful sometimes. You get injured sometimes. Things just happen and you can't go about your life. Well, you can because you have free will, but in my opinion, you're not living life to the fullest if you're constantly just scared of getting injured. You're not going to have a great experience because you're constantly going to be thinking about, well, what if I injure myself? What if I do this? What if I do that? No. Relax. Let it go. You might get injured, but that's just part of the game. And that's part of the beauty of the game. There's positives and negatives to everything. Tokyo Football, amazing football store. Tokyo Football asks, you appear genuinely ambidextrous in playtest videos. Thank you. Is that just natural or do you have a special training regime for your weaker foot? So I'm not ambidextrous. I was born left-footed. So the question then becomes, how did you get to the point where, at least to the outside people, you look ambidextrous? The answer is I had a personal trainer. I had like a local guy who actually played for the Ghanaian national team. For those of you who don't know what that is, national team of Ghana in Africa. He played for the Ghanaian national team and was a professional footballer for a really long time. And he lives and trains people in Seattle, was a huge part of the soccer community. And I got in with him very, very early. I was like 10 or 11 years old. And he drilled my right foot so much, like so much. And I just got more and more and more comfortable with it. I took that learning. I stopped working with him when I was probably 15 or 16 years old because I was training so much with my club team. Once I stopped doing that, I made it a point that anytime I was doing training for fun with friends or I was training on my own, especially, that I would always do equal parts left foot and right foot. Now, that might have been a detriment to the gift I was given of being a left-footed player, which is less common than right-footed players. However, I think it played to my benefit because I don't feel I don't really now feel the difference between playing right-footed or playing left-footed. When it comes to really fast, tight, sharp dribbling, definitely you can tell I'm left-footed. But pretty much everything else, passing, long balls, crossing, shooting, volley, like every other action other than that really, really intense, sharp 1v1 dribbling, I'm basically like, I don't perceive a difference in my like I feel comfortable, super comfy on both sides. And that is literally just a product of training the living shit out of my right foot. That's all it is. It's just hard work. So thank you, Tokyo Football. Bunny asks, how do I buy Mizuno's or any boots from SoccerShopKamo to ship internationally? SoccerShopKamo doesn't ship internationally, so unless you're going to fly to Japan, no can do. Sandro, would you like to see Nike make elite level indoor boots like when they did with the Magista Obra Hypervenom 2/3 and Superfly 4/5? Yeah, definitely. I think this would be really good for the number one, like MASL, which is, I know that's the American version. There are pro indoor leagues all over the world, but for the pro indoor game, I think that would be absolutely awesome because it would give those players who play indoor in the winter, outdoor in the rest of the year, the ability to wear their favorite boots indoor and outdoor. So yeah, absolutely. I actually wore Superfly 4 in indoor when they first came out, when they were the same upper as the Superfly 4s behind me. And I loved them. They were amazing. I had the yellow orange colorway. I'll try to put a photo up on screen, but they were super, super sick. So Ahmad asks, hey Noah, what is the best way to get boots sourced? I'm looking for a pair of Ace 15.1s for my eventual return from an ACL injury and I cannot find them anywhere. I've emailed and messaged several boot dealers with no response. You have to keep looking. You just have to look. There are Ace 15.1s around. They're pretty uncommon because they were all beat to shit because people really liked them. But I would go to every boot dealer that my Instagram follows, and I would follow each one of those people, watch all of their stories every day, and you'll probably find one. Do that for like a month, and I'm sure you will find one in your size. Danny, what's your suggestion for the most narrow midfoot boot on the market currently? And you have Morelia 2. Ooh, Morelia 2 is not a narrow football boot. I would actually go either Morelia Neo 4 Betas, so with the mesh synthetic knit material in the midfoot, or I would go, what else could I recommend that's really narrow and modern? Actually, you might want to go with the Avento from Uno Zero. Those tend to fit. They'll fit most people, but they'll break in kind of with whatever foot shape. The Sudo SFS 01 Plus. That's my answer. Really, really fun football boots to play in, but they're pretty narrow. Tony, are there any current boots on the market that you think could become GOAT tier? Ooh, greatest of all time. Predator Rotero. I know that's last year and they're technically not available anymore, but that's like a modern football boot. Rotero could be God tier at some point or GOAT tier. What else? I do think we're going to remember GX1 Firm Ground as a very good football boot. I think people are going to have, like, that boot is going to be worth a lot of money on the resale market, brand new, moving forward. What else? This is probably a cop-out, but I would say the Morelia, the second generation Morelia DNA, which came out pretty recently, those are already a GOAT tier football boot. So yeah, there's a few. Morelia 2, obviously, but it's been around for so long that you can't really say that it's like a modern football boot because essentially you could get the same thing a decade ago. Jake, Sokito Scudetta versus Alpha 1/2. Good question. Alpha 2 is the best speed boot probably right now on the market, but I prefer the Scudetta because I just like the feel of it better. So both, pretty much. That's a cop-out answer, but I would pick Sokito Scudetta. The Alpha 2 is objectively, it's a better football boot. James, after finishing your football career, have you had any injuries or pain that stayed with you well after? No, because I took care of them when they happened. Yoshi, is there any older model football boot that you've considered putting a rivet or stitching in to fortify the sole plate? Not really. Part of that is because I am testing new football boots all the time and doing reviews on new football boots. And so I don't really have, like, honestly, I just don't have a lot of time to go out and play and, you know, like a Superfly 3, even the pair of Hypervenoms that I have, it's very seldom that I take them out and actually kick a ball in them anymore, just because I'm testing everything else on the market. So not really. The only ones that I would maybe consider are older pairs that I've worn that are sentimental to me that I would want to keep for a really long time and maybe enjoy for a really long time. And there's only a few pairs of those. So like GX, the title winning boot that I wore that's custom, I would probably do something like that. But again, they haven't separated from the sole plate yet, so there's no need to. I've considered buying a pair of Tiempo Legend 5s, which is my favorite Tiempo of all time, and actually doing the stitch so that I could go and play in them. That would be cool, but I'd probably consider doing something like that. Juwan, how do you overcome the fear of getting stepped on? Oh my God, I already saw that one. Toss asks, is AG and turf the same, or is there a difference in boots for them? AG and turf. So the way that I see it is I use the term interchangeably, but if we talk technically speaking, turf is like a carpet. It's the stuff you can buy at a Home Depot or a Bunnings here in Australia. It's like it doesn't have the pellets. It's basically artificial grass carpet is essentially what it is. That's what they play on the professional indoor that I mentioned earlier, that they play on turf, which is usually just over the top of like a rubber base or a carpet. So it's really hard and it's really tough on your joints, but you still have that sort of grass sensation when you pass the ball. Whereas artificial ground, AG, is the actual standard turf, and then it's got the pellets all in between the artificial grass blades, basically. So the majority of the AG pitches that you see around your community and stuff, the majority of those are going to probably be AG as opposed to turf, even though I use them interchangeably. When you're wearing a turf boot, it's like, do I have any right here? I don't. It's the rubber bottom with the tiny little rubber studs on them. And they often have some padding, almost like a running shoe, that gives you a little bit of cushion while you play. And then the AG, obviously, you know what an AG stud pattern looks like, which is it's almost long grass, but it's obviously artificial. So you wouldn't use like something like this on it because it doesn't pivot as well. Good question though. Last question, Scott, what would be the closest boot today to the Nike Total 90 3s? Total 93s, for context, are the boots that Nike is now remaking into indoor court shoes and have become sort of a style thing, which is kind of cool. So there's not really a lot of stuff like those because they came in leather and they came in synthetic. But in terms of general design, with a really big strike zone, offset, really tiny lacing area, this is a wild shout, but the closest thing in terms of design is going to be the Furons. The closest thing in terms of material, I don't know if there is anything. Because that was like OG power boot era where they were heavy, they were chunky, you could hit the crap out of a football. Like, there isn't a whole lot that operates like that. Because most power boots have gone more towards, they're still light, but they're now way more comfortable. A lot of them are either knit or like a fake leather. So yeah, I don't know if there would be anything. All right, that is going to be it for episode 18 of the Boot Report. Thank you for being here. If you got all the way to the end, I want you to put the single water drop, because in this t-shirt, I just feel like I'm absolutely dripping in swag right now. That's a horrible sentence. I don't ever want to say that again, but you get what I'm saying. So a single drip. I want a drip emoji down below. As I mentioned before, Pro Blueprint is coming live. It is going to be here very, very soon. Content, programming, coaching, mindset, branding for those of you guys who want to get into social media, all the above will be coming soon. So go follow those. I'll leave the socials down below as well as the weekly newsletter. And then if you're interested in the Phantom 6 review, click right there. See you guys next week.